Bienvenidos a un programa más de la serie. Hoy en adelante, estudiantes marchan por la protesta legislativa DREAM Act. También la abogada Azadeh Shahshahani habla sobre la ley 287G que permite a la policía enforzar leyes de inmigración. Y el profesor Harlan Hansen presenta su libro sobre lecciones en lectura dedicado a los estudiantes preescolares. Cientos de estudiantes marcharon para pronunciarse a favor de la ley conocida como DREAM Act, la cual propone cuotas escolares justas en las universidades públicas y es conocida como In-State Tuition. También es considerado como un camino a la ciudadanía para aquellos estudiantes indocumentados que fueron traídos al país a temprana edad.
And we cannot let another class graduate without having that, possibility of becoming whatever they want to be. And so that's why we're here. And I'd just like to thank everybody for showing up today. I'd like to thank Riverside and students for, for hosting us here today. I'd like to say that,
El 5 de mayo pasado, cientos de estudiantes de la preparatoria y la universidad se reunieron en solidaridad para apoyar al DREAM Act, un proyecto de ley que les daría a miles de estudiantes indocumentados que han crecido en los Estados Unidos la oportunidad de realizar sus estudios superiores y obtener un camino a la ciudadanía.
Mi nombre es Mario Gómez, estoy aquí en apoyo al DREAM Act y estamos aquí unidos para enseñar la fuerza de nuestro movimiento, para enseñar la fuerza de nuestra comunidad y el poder que tiene nuestra comunidad. Mayo es un mes de graduación. Muchos estudiantes están graduando este mes y queremos asegurarnos que la gente sepa que no vamos a dejar que pase otra clase que no pueda llegar a sus sueños, a cumplir sus sueños de ser un médico, de ser un maestro, de ser yo que quiero ser un organizador de la comunidad y seguir haciendo acciones como estas. No podemos dejar que otra clase se gradúe sin tener esa misma oportunidad.
For freed men and freed women.
La manifestación tomó lugar en el Parque Riverside, al este de la ciudad de Milwaukee, en donde líderes y representantes de la comunidad expresaron su apoyo al DREAM Act.
1868.
Minutos después, los participantes comenzaron a marchar de manera organizada y pacífica hacia la Universidad de Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Estamos apoyando, primero de todo, una reforma de inmigración comprensiva y como parte de esa reforma incluye el DREAM Act, el DREAM sueño, ¿verdad? ¿El sueño de qué? Sueño de tener la oportunidad para después de la escuela secundaria poder ir al colegio y universidades y seguir nuestras carreras.
Otro de los enfoques de la marcha fue el protestar en contra de la ley de Arizona SB 1070. Una ley antiinmigrante que fue introducida el pasado marzo y que criminaliza a los indocumentados.
Aquellos de nosotros que hemos vivido en la frontera conocemos exactamente lo que están sufriendo las familias de Arizona. El judío que vivió debajo del yugo del nazismo sabe lo que está sucediendo en Arizona. Los morenitos que vivieron en Sudáfrica debajo del sistema de segregación conocido como apartheid saben lo que está sucediendo en Arizona. Por eso todo el mundo ahorita se levanta y nos apoya, porque tiene esa experiencia y quiere remover y quitar una cosa que creíamos que ya era, así iba a quedar en la historia, pero ahora lo vemos otra vez en Arizona.
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Me dio mucha alegría ver todos esos estudiantes caminando por aquí y no sabía que van a estar aquí hoy. Estoy bien alegre de ver que están haciendo algo importante y diciendo algo sobre esa ley en Arizona y el DREAM Act, que es bien importante también.
Al llegar a la Universidad de Wisconsin-Milwaukee, los estudiantes se reunieron de nuevo en la Plaza Spades, en donde continuaron su manifestación.
I'm here because I support the DREAM Act. Because for one, it was introduced in 2001. 9 years later, nothing has happened since. Too many immigrant youth are graduating, and about 1 month or less, there'll be more immigrant students graduating, and they'll be graduating into a future that they won't know what to do.
The United States shouldn't be wasting time in racial profiles, but in giving opportunities for our future leaders. These students have been struggling, fighting hard for a dream, and instead of being punished, we need graduation, not deportation.
Yo pienso que es muy importante porque hay millones de estudiantes que se gradúan cada año y sus sueños se van a la basura. Es algo que a mí me parte el alma porque no me gusta ver que gente con sueños, con la posibilidad de ser alguien en la vida, no haga nada por lo mismo. Soy nacida en California. Yo vengo de papás de Guadalajara, Jalisco, pero yo peleo porque yo lucho, porque la gente que yo veo que es necesitada, si yo puedo ayudarlos en algo, yo voy a hacer todo lo que sea posible para que sus sueños se hagan realidad.
¡Sí se puede! 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 ¡Sí se puede!
Miren, los estudiantes de MECH aquí de la Universidad de Wisconsin en Milwaukee organizaron esta demostración para llegar la gente a saber que necesitamos apoyar lo que se llama the DREAM Act, que es una acta de legislación en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos para permitir a estudiantes indocumentados que puedan participar en nuestro sistema educativo universitario sin pagar lo que se llama out-of-state tuition, pagar lo mismo que paga cualquier otra persona que vive en ese mismo estado.
My name is Nina. I go to UWM. I'm also a student organizer with Voces de la Frontera, and I support this movement because I think it's important to give a voice to people who wouldn't normally have one because they're scared of being targeted by the police and by immigration. And I think it's a really important cause, especially nowadays when we need to reinforce the fact that the United States was built on immigrants, and they're an incredibly important part to our economy, to our culture, to our country, and
Immigrants are people too.
I'm here with solidarity with them.
Estoy apoyando nomás porque mi madre y mi padre eran indocumentados por un buen tiempo, mucho de mi vida. No pudimos hacer mucho de lo que queríamos hacer, viajar, family trips, por la razón que eran indocumentados. Estoy aquí, DREAM Act, yo conozco mucha gente que son indocumentados, que están en la high school, muchos primos, familias, que ellos quieren salir adelante y pues no pueden porque a la misma vez que se gradúen, ¿qué más pueden hacer? No pueden ir al colegio, no pueden trabajar. DREAM Act les daría una chance de salir adelante y ayudar a la familia. Y ¿sabes qué? Me da mucho orgullo ser mexicano y estar aquí por la raza, por mi familia, que en verdad todos mexicanos, todos latinos, todos de todas races son mi familia y estoy aquí para apoyarlos en toda manera que puedo.
La abogada de la ACLU en Georgia, Azadeh Shahshahani, estuvo en Adelante en abril pasado para hablar de las consecuencias de la implementación del programa 287G. El programa permite que la policía actúe como oficiales de inmigración. 77 agencias en el país han estado involucradas hasta abril en este programa. Attorney Shahshahani, welcome to Adelante.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you please explain this program that in your study you talk about, the 287G?
287G refers to the agreement between local law enforcement and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, which is a branch of the Department of Homeland Security, by which certain law enforcement officers, such as certain number of sheriff deputies, are empowered to enforce immigration laws. So basically, it turns local law enforcement and the police into immigration agents.
What have been the effects of the enforcement of these programs in the states where it's working right now?
So based on the studies that we conducted in Cobb County and Gwinnett County, Georgia, the program has had the effect of making communities afraid of the police, and it's led to erosion of trust between immigrant communities and the police. So that, you know, if immigrants have been victims of crime or have been witnesses to crimes, they are reluctant to contact the police, and they're, you know, increasingly afraid and living in a space of isolation and really terror, which, you know, in our opinion, leads to erosion of public safety for all of us.
What number of states are being involved in this 287G program?
Right now, there are 66 localities around the country. It used to be a higher number, but you know, some localities have dropped out of the program, specifically because of this, you know, problem of lack of trust between the immigrant communities and the police. And, you know, the police chiefs around the country, many of them feel that, you know, their primary job is, you know, policing, community policing, and for that to happen, there needs to be trust with the community.
What are the results of these actions of local police enforcing immigration laws?
So for one thing, you know, immigration laws are very complicated, and the training that ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, affords to local law enforcement, you know, we don't feel that that's sufficient to really train them in enforcement of immigration laws. So, you know, there have been abuses that have been documented. It has led to racial profiling and, you know, abuses at the detention centers. So, you know, the program in general is rife with abuses, and, you know, part of which is the result of the fact that local law enforcement aren't sufficiently trained in, you know, in immigration laws, and they shouldn't be in the business of enforcing immigration laws in the first place.
What is your experience on learning about the struggle in between these two groups, the Latinos and the Middle Eastern and Muslim groups? Are there differences in their ordeal, or are they similar in what they have been going through, especially in the last administrations, presidential administrations?
So, you know, the Middle Eastern and Muslim communities and Latino communities are, you know, facing oppression, and you know, the laws have been designed in a way to, you know, unfortunately facilitate crackdown on these communities. Now, you know, the oppression takes different forms. When it comes to Latino communities, specifically undocumented communities, you have 287G, you have, you know, other forms. When it comes to Middle Eastern and Muslim communities, you have FBI questionings, much of which, you know, was precipitated not based on individualized suspicion, but based on, you know, just the fact that the person is, you know, happens to be Muslim or from a Middle Eastern country. As well as religious discrimination. A lot of Muslim communities are, you know, still experiencing. And so, you know, what we try to do in Georgia is to, you know, bring the communities together to, you know, speak about the violations that they're facing, and, you know, together come up with mechanisms to challenge.
What is your story as a 16-year-old Iranian girl coming to the United States and becoming an attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union?
So I did come to the U.S. when I was 16. I first went to Memphis, Tennessee, and you know, even though the people at my high school, the teachers, the students were really hospitable. It was still a very difficult experience as an immigrant. And, I was privileged in that, I became a U.S. citizen and, was able to go to school. And, that experience, though, and the difficulties involved in, learning the language and adjusting to the environment really made me relate to the experience faced by, migrants and immigrants and refugee communities, many of whom are you don't have the same privileges I was afforded, and many of whom are really trying to make a life for themselves and their families, and are working hard to achieve that.
Can you explain how this 287 program has increased racial profiling?
So both of our studies focused on Gwinnett and Cobb showed that 287G has indeed led to an increase in racial profiling. First of all, many of these counties, the 4 counties in Georgia, for example, already had a really bad track record of, racial injustice and racial profiling. And, with having this agreement in place where, there's little accountability and oversight, the problem of racial profiling has continued, if not worsened. So the situation you have in Gwinnett County, for example, people have been pulled over and no reason has been provided for why they have been pulled over. Apparently there hasn't been any probable cause or reasonable suspicion leading to the traffic stop. And, in one case we had a U.S. citizen actually who was pulled over twice in the course of the past year, and both times he asked the officer up to 5 times, why was I pulled over, and no reason was provided, until he provided his driver's license and was let go. So we fear that his case is emblematic of what has been happening in Gwinnett and Cobb County.
After all these issues going on with this program of the 287G, what has been the recommendations provided by your conducted study?
Mm-hmm. So we recommended that the 287G program end in Cobb County and in Gwinnett County because of what we've seen, the threat to public safety, families being torn apart, and the fact that it has really been used as a tool to go after moms and dads and working members of our community, not to make the community safer. And we also recommended that the state of Georgia pass the Anti-Racial Profiling Act to provide for a measure of accountability and transparency for law enforcement.
Attorney Shahshahani, thank you very much for being with us on Adelante.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
El profesor Harlan Hansen visitó Adelante a finales de julio para presentar su libro Lessons for Literacy. El libro habla, entre otras cosas, de la importancia de la lectura y la escritura en los primeros años escolares y sobre cómo educadores y familiares pueden ayudar en el proceso de aprendizaje. Professor Hansen, can you talk about the purposes of your book?
What we realized in working with especially migrant workers, low-income teachers, and programs like that, that there really was not a lot of material available for them to begin to establish some literacy, especially in the preschools. There are a number of pretty high-end preschools that are fairly heavily into literacy, and that may not always be the best way to go. But the point is they are, and as we worked with some of the teachers, we just found that that they really didn't have the skills to even begin doing some of the basic materials, which really causes a problem when they all come to kindergarten or another school, because the range of individual differences keeps widening, and that's really a problem. The other thing we realized was that the parents don't have a good handle on literacy. Some parents have no idea what it is. Some parents think it's sitting down and teaching them the alphabet when they're 2 years old. And I see the new book is out now on literacy for babies. And so we felt also that this would help parents have a way to sort of very developmentally work with their children in a very positive way.
Professor Hansen, what are the beliefs that we need to change about preschool literacy?
What we're trying to say is that that literacy can be developed in a very natural way, and that therefore one of the problems of dealing with all children doing the same thing is that, again, we don't deal with individual differences. If some children come in knowing the alphabet and some come in not knowing anything, and then we treat them all in one lesson, say, let's do the letter of the week, for example. Well, when we do the letter of the week, we know that some know and some don't. The problem is we're really taking time away from the ones who don't by spending time with the ones who do. And that's really a serious problem in a teacher's time and how they do it. The second thing I think that's very critical is we're moving into much more of an assessment mode in the preschools. Assessment was always a problem for the preschool professionals as well as the teachers, because they always thought that assessment meant that you were cramming things down children's throat. In other words, you were going to assess them and then you're going to make them do it. And that's really a misnomer. An assessment really tells us what should we be working on. So what we'll say is here are a number of activities for you to begin to build, and the assessment sheet tells you how you're progressing. It doesn't necessarily tell you where you have to be at a certain time. And even at the end of a preschool, 4-year-old preschool, we will have some children who will perhaps still be lacking in some of those. But the point is they'll have a foundation at least for moving into the next level of education. We can pass that information on for somebody to work with. But at least everybody's pretty well into, first, what should we be doing? And second, at what point are children progressing?
Can you tell us about your background, how you got related to this sort of education and focus on preschoolers?
I spent 6 years in business, and all the time I wanted to teach very badly. There came a time when I was able to sort of make the break and to go back and begin to get certified for teaching, which I wasn't before. Fortunately, I had a wife who was a very helpful person, but she was also a kindergarten teacher, which sort of made it very natural. I came back thinking I might be going more into the intermediate grades, but as we worked together, it began to change my mind. And then a staff member at the university, who was our major professor, got a grant, and what he wanted to show, to demonstrate, was a husband-wife team teaching together. We'd both been involved in team teaching. Team teaching relates to personalities more than anything else. So personalities get along, the team gets along. If they don't, then it's a problem. And at the end of the first week, there was an article in the newspaper. We had anywhere from 15 to 30 observers a day from then on, watching husband and wife adjust to each other, and also to have a man in early childhood at the same time. So it turned out to be successful, and that's why I'm here today.
You talk in your book about the relationship between music and children's literacy. Can you comment on that?
Children love to sing. I mean, that's sort of a natural thing that children do, and so we want to work some literacy into their singing. It's right up here at the front of the book. Okay, for example, children love "Hush, Little Baby." And so teachers will sing it with them on a regular basis, and the children eventually learn it. And so we say, "Hush, little baby, don't say a word, Papa's going to buy you a mockingbird." Well, we put the word mockingbird on the side. So that doesn't mean we push it, we just sing with it and the words here. And then one day we might take away the picture of the bird, and as they're singing the mockingbird, they're still going to sing it from memory, but now they're going to focus on the word mockingbird. I want to buy you a diamond, or you'll get a diamond ring, and so now we'll be working with these concurrently. So over a period of time, we don't specify anything. Some children will catch it right away, some children won't catch it for a while. But music now becomes a way to incorporate word recognition while they're doing what they like. And if you take most of the songs in early childhood education, you can find some word code that will help the children when they're singing.
Can you also comment on strategies for working with families?
One of the things we need to do is to let families know much more about what's going on in their program, the child's program, and how they can be helpers. We're suggesting that teachers need to, in advance of what whatever it is we're studying, send some letters home to parents to talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it. Here are some ways you can get involved. And so some of that involvement will be helping them at home, but not on skill material. It may be looking for words in the environment. It may be learning some new word vocabulary as they walk out on the street. But it may also be asking them on material that they have related to what it is we're studying that parents can send in. So parents can be partners without leaving home. Children need a vocabulary to begin to have a basis for attaining literacy skills. And the wider the vocabulary, the really more successful start that you really have. So the more parents will talk to their children about what's going on when they walk down the street. And I think one key point that we always have to remember is thinking comes before verbalization. In other words, some people say, well, you know, I got to wait to hear a child talk before I... No, children have just a host of words and ideas in their mind even before they can talk. Having that, though, allows them, when they finally begin to master the ability to speak, to have that as a way now to bring out and use.
Professor Hansen, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
Al final de un programa más, por favor déjenos saber sus comentarios al teléfono 297-7544 o escríbanos a nuestro correo electrónico adelante@matc.edu. Visítenos en nuestro sitio del internet en mptv.org y en Facebook. Sintonícenos en canal 10.1 o 36.2 todos los martes a las 6:30 de la tarde. Y en canal 36.1 los miércoles a las 12:30 de la medianoche y los domingos a las 5:30 de la tarde. Soy Patricia Gomez, muy buenas noches.